Hello and welcome to the Art of Decluttering podcast. I'm Amy. I'm your host. I'm the owner of the Art of Decluttering, and I love all things decluttering and organising. I love efficiency. I love systems that make life so much easier. And I am really passionate about sharing that with you and helping you experience freedom from clutter as well. If this is your first episode that you've ever tuned into, welcome. There are nearly 400 other episodes that you can go back and listen to. This podcast has been around for over 6 years. So go back, scroll through, find some episodes that interest you. There's episodes on rooms, there's episodes on mindsets, there's episodes on life stages and types of decluttering and things you didn't even think of when you thought about decluttering. And maybe one of those things is today's episode, because we're talking about confirmation bias. And I find this a really interesting thing because this is one of those objections that often come up when I'm working with a client or when I'm doing a virtual session with someone or when I'm doing a workshop and someone will put up their hand and they'll say something like this: every time I get rid of something and declutter something, I always need it straight away, or within a week, I definitely need that thing and then I always regret decluttering it. And confirmation bias is people's tendency to process information by looking for or interpreting information that's consistent with their existing beliefs. And so, although that's largely unintentional, we don't intentionally kind of put a confirmation bias lens on when we're making decisions. It means that you often ignore information that's inconsistent with what you want to hear. And so when it comes to decluttering and organizing, if the confirmation bias that you're laying over all your decisions is, see, I told you I was going to need that thing, then what happens is when you do declutter things and then you might think down the track, oh my gosh, I wish I had that thing still because I could use it right now. What you're then building is this confirmation bias of, see, I told you I would need it. Rather than the confirmation bias being, wow, of all of the hundreds of things I've decluttered, I can't believe that I've only needed one thing. That's pretty incredible. And so what I really want to challenge you today on is questioning that confirmation bias and maybe switching up the story that you tell yourself. Because I can guarantee that at some stage in your decluttering, you are going to want or need something that you have gotten rid of in the past. Now, it may not happen regularly. It may not be significant. It might just be, oh, I wish I had that egg cup. But it will happen at some stage because there is no guarantees when it comes to decluttering. And I think it's actually really important that as declutter experts and coaches that we say to clients, like, this is the reality. Like, we don't want you to act out of fear. So don't be scared of maybe making the wrong decision. But what we do is we want to make the best decision with the knowledge that we have now for the future that we want. So I could keep let's say someone had a moon boot from breaking their foot. And they think, well, I don't want to get rid of it because I bet you as soon as I get rid of it, I'm going to fall and break my ankle again. And so you don't get rid of it. And then in 2, 3, 5, 10 years' time, when you fall and break your ankle, you go, see, this is why I didn't get rid of the moon boot. But what if you got rid of the moon boot and then 3 months, 3 years, 10 years later, you broke your ankle? You would actually get creative. So you'd think, okay, what could the solution be? Could I have an alternative solution to, oh my goodness, regret of having thrown that thing out? Could I borrow it from someone? Is there an alternative that I could use within the house? So I don't have a moon boot, but I've got crutches, and actually the doctor said either would be fine. What if you could hire it? What if you could borrow it from someone? And so rather than necessarily going to that confirmation bias of, see, I knew I shouldn't have got rid of that thing. This always happens to me. It's something that people often say when I'm working with them or at a speaking event. It always happens. But actually, that's your confirmation bias. It may have happened once or twice, but the confirmation bias is that's all you see. All you see is the couple of times that you needed something, not the hundreds of times when you decluttered something that you can't even remember that you decluttered. You don't even remember what it was, let alone how and when and why you needed it. So there are some alternative stories that you can tell yourself. You can say, this is really normal. I wonder what the solution's going to be. I really like thinking around solutions, and I think I've mentioned on here before that I kind of dream of when I'm an older lady and I'm retired, I want to be like a problem solver, a professional problem solver, where you come and you ask a question. I'm like, oh, I get to create some alternative options and solution finding and problem solving. And so what could the solution be? And as I said before, is there an alternative you could use? Could you borrow it from someone? And then there's this really important question. What is the cost of not having this? What is the cost of not having this? Is it annoying or catastrophic? Because I can't think of any scenario where you would agree that it's catastrophic. And so if it's just annoying, clutter's annoying too. Like there's a cost-benefit analysis in every bit of decluttering that you do, because there's benefit. You get space, you get time, you get freedom from stuff, you get more enjoyment, you get peace of mind, there's less nagging, less tidying up, less things to maintain. And there's always a cost. So it takes time to declutter, and possibly you might eventually accidentally get rid of something that you need. I've got some options, some alternatives that I want to explore with you. Let's go to a quick break and I'll come back and go through 3 different things that you could do when you come across an instance where you've gotten rid of something that you now need, and how we overcome our natural confirmation bias. So when you naturally want to kind of throw your hands up in the air and say, see, I definitely shouldn't got rid of this. I knew I was going to need it. This is why I don't get rid of things. I knew this would happen. If that's the story that you're telling, here are some options. So when you discover that you need something, you can find an alternative solution or a substitute. So you might have gotten rid of your, let me just think, let's go your steamer. A lot of people have those kind of handheld steamers now. And you decided, actually, I barely use the steamer, maybe once or twice a year, and it's taking up all that space. I'm going to get rid of it. And then you have to steam something and you think, oh, I knew this would happen. What about an alternative solution is that you could hang it up in the bathroom while you have a shower and let the steam that you're naturally creating cause those creases to drop out. Could an alternative solution be that you just iron it? Like, is it a suitable thing to iron? Maybe you could borrow somebody else's steamer, or you could go to somebody's house that has a steamer. Or you could purchase the item again. Like, that is an option. The minimalists talk about the 20-20 rule. If you can purchase something for under $20 in under 20 minutes, then don't spend too much brain space deciding whether you're going to keep it. So you could purchase the item again. And let's be honest, when you were living in a particularly cluttered space, you were probably purchasing items that you already owned anyway, but it was just because you couldn't find them, or you didn't know where they were, or you were missing a part. Whereas now you're repurchasing it because you know that you're going to need it, but you're thinking about it and you're being more intentional about it. So you can find an alternative solution or a substitution. You could purchase the item again, or you could just let it go and don't do the thing. So maybe it's that you either don't wear that item of clothing and you declutter the item because you're like, actually, it's a lot of work. This requires a lot of attention and I do kind of need to steam it and I don't want to buy a steamer. If it's in the kitchen, is there another way of doing that thing? Or do you go, actually, I don't really care if the cream is whipped and I'm happy to just buy a double thick cream and pour it so I don't need a food processor. Like, there's sometimes when you might feel that you need the thing and you don't, you actually just need to let go of the reason of why you feel like you're needing it. And just because you kept the thing and you needed the thing and then you used the thing, it doesn't mean that you wouldn't have found an alternative solution. It doesn't mean that, you know, like that confirmation bias of, see, now I've got these long-handled secateurs because I definitely needed those for the garden. And just because you kept them, just because you went, oh, I need the long-handled secateurs, and just because you used them, it still doesn't mean you wouldn't have found an alternative. Like, maybe the alternative is you would have used the ladder, just gotten up for the couple of times a year you needed the long-handed secateurs. So just because you kept it and used it doesn't need to then feed into that confirmation bias of, see, now I know. And just because you used it doesn't mean you needed it. There are so many things that we use even though there's a suitable alternative. And we often see this when we look at families who don't have a lot. And the creativity in coming up with solutions is really awesome. And then again, sometimes you don't even need to have a solution. You just need to let the expectation go, or let that thing go of what you needed. Oh my goodness, I knew I was going to need that for a dress-up party. Well, no, you could have used it if you still had it, but would you even have been able to find it? And let's get creative. What's an alternative for the dress-up party? Can you hire something? Not, oh, I should have definitely kept all of those items of clothing that were retro, that didn't really fit properly, that I was never wearing. Just because you could use it doesn't mean you will. So I hope that that's helpful. I want you to challenge your own confirmation bias instead of just going, yep, see, I told you. Ask some different questions. Say to yourself, this is normal. I wonder what the solution's going to be. And I think I almost want to put that up in my office somewhere. I wonder what the solution's going to be, because that just gives our brains the freedom to be creative, to think outside the box, to give ourselves permission to let the problem go, not even find a solution, which I really love. I think it's really cool. I wanted to direct your attention this week to my free 5-day wardrobe declutter challenge. It's free, and it is an awesome way of you starting your decluttering when you kind of go, I don't know where to start. And it is the clothes that are bothering you. Maybe you don't feel like there's room to fit everything into your wardrobe. You've got baskets of washing sitting around because it's just too hard. I really want to invite you to come do my I can't even get my words right. Do my free 5-day wardrobe declutter challenge. There's a link in the show notes. Otherwise, you can just go to theartofdecluttering.com.au/wardrobe and you'll be able to go in. There's videos to follow and there's blogs to go through. I think that's really helpful. I've noticed lots of people joining lately, so I thought, I'm going to remind my podcast community about that as well. Thank you for being with me this week. I hope that you've got some different thoughts to bring into your decluttering. And until next week, enjoy the freedom. I would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people, who are the traditional custodians of the land this podcast is recorded on. I would also like to pay respects to their elders, both past and present, of the Kulin Nation, and extend that respect to other Indigenous Australians. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would love you to rate and review the show on your podcast app. That will help others to find the Art of Decluttering podcast as well. If you'd like any more information, you can visit theartofdecluttering.com.au. And I would love to see you in my Facebook group. Just search the Art of Decluttering community on Facebook and join today. I hope that you have an incredible rest of your day and enjoy the freedom.